What's up, guys? It's Gary with Fresh from the Farm Fungi. I'm here in my lab in Denver, Colorado, and today I wanted to start a new adventure with Cordyceps. So if you haven't seen my playlist so far, I have a whole series on how to breed Cordyceps, and that project went really well from my perspective. You know, I got to really understand the ins and outs of breeding Cordyceps, how they behave on agar, how they behave on greens, and you know, some of the difficulties about growing Cordyceps. So I wanted to start a new series, 2.0 Cordyceps, or I'm just going to attach it onto the same playlist. But I wanted to cover a few problems with my past Cordyceps projects. So if you haven't gotten this book yet, I highly recommend the Cordyceps Cultivation Handbook by William Padilla Brown. This is the version 2. I believe that there's they don't make this in text anymore or print, and he just released the book for like $5 on ebook, so it's super accessible to everyone. But I highly recommend getting this. It has a lot of visuals, and more importantly, it has a bunch of different recipes. So looking back on my previous videos, some of my substrate recipe was missing a couple key components. So Cordyceps requires nitrogen and a carbon source, and my previous project, I put all the nutrients into the liquid media that I use to grow the mycelium. So the problem that I think happened was that my mycelium would eat up all the nutrients in the liquid culture, and then by the time it got transferred onto the grains, it didn't have the proper protein. So the way to mitigate this is to add a broth to the grain. So I wanted to start off as least amount of work as possible, because my plans are to scale this up to a commercial size grow of Cordyceps. So less steps the better, and this first video is just going to cover the differences in volume of rice and the volume of the broth. So going through this entire book, I did my research, and I think that the easiest substrate recipe that I'm going to run with on this experiment is going to be with milk. I'm going to use 1% cow's milk and rice. So the milk contains casein proteins as well as whey proteins. It has all the vitamins and minerals that are essential to Cordyceps, and then the rice is going to provide the 3D matrix and all the carbohydrates that the Cordyceps needs. So I got organic milk from Costco. It's right, down the road from my house, so it's super easy to get, and it's going to be consistent. If I scale this up, it's super cheap and affordable, and then I'm going to be using just white rice that I got from California. It's also organic, and I might move away to a different rice at some point, maybe like a more local sourced grain. I like to use oats, and I haven't really experimented with that too much, but I wanted to start off with something that was tried and true, and then kind of move into my own local area. Maybe someone can get me some wild rice or something. But anyway, this is just my experiment 2.0, and I wanted to go through the different substrate recipes. So you can notice also that I switched to these deli jars. It's a polypropylene 5, so it's supposed to be resistant to pressure cooking. I cooked these at 15 psi for 30 minutes. I might be changing that up a little bit because these lids that were originally on them got kind of melted. I think it happened when the pressure from cooling down was drawing in air. So this isn't supposed to happen, but I just replaced the lids with clear cellophane, and then I parafilmed the edge. So hopefully it gives me a nice baseline for moving forward. But the whole purpose of this was not to figure out the container, but to figure out the ideal amount of broth to substrate ratio. So you can see this one was taken from the book as the milk rice substrate recipe, and I used 72 grams of rice to 74 grams of milk. So you can see, in my opinion, from my last experiment, this substrate might be a little too thick, but you can see the consistency here. It's very uniform. It's almost like a sponge. There's lots of air pockets, lots of connection points, and I'm just going to inoculate this wild UK Cordyceps strain that I got from Kaizen Cordyceps in England. So I'm super excited to add some more varieties to my breeding. I think in the long term, the more strains that you can breed with, the better quality genetics you'll have in the long term. Just because then you won't be inbreeding from the same, original mother culture, and that's going to lead to mutations. But you can see, so that is the 72 grams rice, 74 grams milk. So next we'll move on to 45 grams of rice, 72 grams milk. So you can see this one is very saturated. It's a lighter color, a lot more hydrated rice. So once again though, I think it's a little bit too much substrate, but we'll find out. So next we got the quarter cup of rice. So that's going to be about 45 grams of rice to 40 grams of milk. So this is, a little bit more of what I was looking for, about 3/4 of an inch. You can see it's got a nice even distribution. The rice cooked really well in that procedure, so I have no complaints. Just finding the right temperature for the container is going to be the next thing. Alright, so then my next cup is going to be 47 grams of rice to 38 grams of milk. So right now I'm kind of pulling off on the milk to add to make a little bit of a drier substrate, especially on the top, and then I'm going to be adding my liquid culture. So I feel like this one is going to be closer to ideal. Alright, so then the next one down is going to be 1/3 cup or 30 grams of rice to 42 grams of milk. So this is another saturated version, but with less substrate. So moving towards the more ideal amount of substrate, but a little bit too much broth, I think. Alright, so then this one is, I think it's going to be my winner. It's just a hunch compared to my last experiment. You can see a very nice layer of substrate, and this one is 35 grams of rice to 23 grams of milk. So you can see it's the perfect, just above 1/2 inch. It's dry enough where if I add my liquid culture, it's not going to sit on the bottom. You can see there's still some air on the bottom. So I think this one is what I'm going to roll with when I scale up to figure out what size containers I want to use. And actually I'm probably going to stick to these containers and just adjust my cooking time. So then as we get down to the smaller and smaller substrates, this one is 2 tablespoons or 33 grams of rice to 20 grams of milk. And then 30 grams of milk, or 30 grams of rice to 33 grams of milk. So I did the same thing twice at the end. just to verify, but it's got, you know, a pretty good layer of rice. It's almost like there was not enough and it didn't have that buffer, so you can see some of these kernels are starting to burn at the top. Alright guys, so that's my update on my new Cordyceps project 2.0. I'm going to be doing updates throughout, you know, this whole process just like before, and hopefully I get some new strains out of this, as well as, you know, this UK United Kingdom Cordyceps. I just QC'd this last week, so it's coming out clean, and I'm going to go ahead and just inoculate these all with about 3 milliliters of liquid culture. So I'll throw this on the stir plate and I will start spinning that up so I'll have a nice mixed homogeneous culture, and then I'm going to grab some syringes, so hold on. Alright guys, so I've got my gloves here, my culture is stirring, and I've got my sterile syringe. And I'm just going to be grabbing a 16 gauge needle. And this is going to just test this UK strain. I also have a strain from terrestrial fungi, and then the top 2 strains from my breeding project, C3C8 and C3C10. And then I also have a couple other strains that I got randomly. I don't really have, you know, a description of those, so I'm just gonna put those in the next trial run and see how things go. Alright, so this looks pretty mixed up, and I'm gonna try to pull this up so you guys can see a little more closely what I'm doing here. Alright. Alright, and then I'm just going to go right down the line and inoculate with a good amount. So you can see that there's plenty of mycelium, and I'm actually going to get a little piece of micropore tape to put over the hole. So I got some micropore tape here, 3M. And then I'm just going to cover my inoculation hole. So here's the first one. And I'm just going around that was about 5 mils. So one thing I learned through this whole process is that it's better to use a liquid culture with Cordyceps to inoculate as opposed to using an auger wedge. It's a very cottony and round culture, so it's not very rhizomorphic, and it doesn't explore too much of its area, which makes sense because they normally grow on insects. which are pretty small to begin with compared to like a tree with a saprophytic mushroom that it has to span the whole entire tree in order to colonize it. So liquid culture definitely works well. I'm just making sure that I hit the perimeter, and then I'm kind of zigzagging my way through the middle of the substrate with the liquid culture, and that way it will start from the outside and colonize. Alright, so this getting to a little bit less substrate, so maybe I'll hold off and only do 4 mils. Yeah, because you can see this is the ideal one, so I'm going to try to put about 3 or 4 mils in this. And you can see it soak right into that rice. So that was 3 mils, maybe 3.5. And then this micropore tape is just going to prevent any contaminants from getting into that inoculation point. Alright, so you can see I've still got a bunch of this liquid culture left. This is about 3 weeks old. It took about a week to grow, and then I QC'd it, and then I put it in the refrigerator for a week. So that should be good to go. And like I said, I got that strain from Cordyceps in the UK. Alright guys, so I'll back this up. Alright, so this is the start of our Cordyceps project 2.0. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned and subscribe if you're looking forward for more mycology videos like these, especially Cordyceps. We're going to be doing some gardening with fungi videos this spring, so I'm really excited. One of my friends from a men's group meeting that I meet with every Monday is going to be helping me build some hoop houses. I want to do some raised beds, and I've got some really cool things that I'm planning to incorporate part of, my aseptic cultures and my aseptic process into gardening, so that more and more people could start to learn the life cycle of mushrooms and how to utilize mushrooms in the garden. I'm a big gardener. We have a vegetable garden that I do every single year, and it gets better and better every year. And the more and more I'm adding my spent substrates that are composted into the garden, it's just getting healthier and healthier, and I think it's time to start adding more mycelium to that mix. So stay tuned for that. Give us a thumbs up and check out our Etsy. We just loaded a bunch of cultures. I'm going to be doing some new strains that I'm test running. I got a really nice oyster strain from North Carolina. Shout out to Kyle for that. I've got the Michigan fall oyster that I'm running right now, and then I've also got a bear's head strain and a new lion's mane strain. So I'm just going to be testing some new strains out right before spring hits, and then I'll be releasing those strains on my Etsy. So check out our Etsy, Fresh Fungi. Check out our website, Fresh from the Farm Fungi. If you want to find us, we'll be at Cherry Creek again this year. So we just got our spot at Cherry Creek Farmers Market. We're also going to start stocking the co-op family market at the co-op at First. And at some point, we're going to be doing some local pickups and possibly delivery. So we're going to be testing all that out this season. Our fruiting tent is finally going. We got our first rounds in there, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for being patient to all of our customers. And until next time, guys, much love.